Welcome in another edition of the Spare Time Bowling Show. Of course, don't forget you can download this on your Odyssey app or wherever you download your favorite podcast at. Steve Sparky Fifer here. Follow me at Sparky Radio. He is Dwight Albrecht over there at the Spare Time Pro Shop. That's why we have this show called the Spare Time Bowling Show. Follow him on Twitter at Dewey300. He is Phil Brylow, $2 Phil. You know him. Follow him on Twitter at Brew City Bowling. Apparently, Dwight's longtime friend, who we never knew about, joins us now. He is Scott Wilbur, president of MOTIV Bowling. Scott, thanks a lot for joining us. Appreciate it.
It's great. I'm thrilled to be here. Nobody, I should say nobody, but I don't do this stuff very often, so I will probably do poorly, but I will try my best. That's all I can do.
You'll be fine. You'll be fine. Okay, so I'm going to start real nice and simple. What led to the whole beginning of MOTIV Bowling and how this whole thing goes? Because I bowled growing up, but I never had a dream of owning a bowling ball company. Never really thought that was a thing. Oh yeah, let's go compete against Brunswick and Storm. That'll be fun. Like, no, never crossed my mind. So how does that whole thing go with you and your brother?
Well, it really was a thing where we've been in bowling. My dad started the business like 60 some years ago. He was a chemical engineer. And he did corporate troubleshooting for his, for the company he worked for. And he actually started doing some work for them for Brunswick. Okay. And some of the projects that they would bring to his company were too small. Okay. For, some were big, but some were too small for his company to handle. So he said, I can do this as a thing of customer service. So he started doing these little odd jobs, for Brunswick. This grew into eventually a business large enough where he quit doing the chemical engineering for other companies and he just did it for himself. And so that's kind of how, we started working in bowling. We did work for Ebonite. We did work for a lot of companies back then, Roto-Grip and, all kinds of, long time ago companies. And then we actually ended up being Brunswick Bowling's biggest supplier at one point. My dad unfortunately passed away about 34 years ago, but and we were still fairly small. I'd been with him for about 8 years at that point, 7 years, and but we tripled in size, and then from that, my brother and I were doing the engineering, which we were helping my dad already, and we just grew it into this, like I said, Brunswick's biggest supplier. Then they decided to move to Mexico, which, is obviously their decision. I didn't support it. I wanted them to stay in town. But at that point, we were making all the bowling ball cores for their bowling balls. Not all the cores. We were making all the high performance cores, and we were making lane oils, cleaners, things like that. But anyway, they wanted to go, and we didn't want to go. We didn't want to be bought out and have our stuff sent down there. We were very pro-America and still am. And anyway, and so we started. We had this fantastic, the basically state-of-the-art core factory, which we had designed, developed. It was ours, and the engineering was ours. And so we were great cores. So we figured, okay, what we got to do is figure out cover stocks now. And so we started, basically a bowling ball factory. And that's how it starts. I mean, it's kind of one of those things where doors are open and you keep walking through them and you just look for the path, kind of, and God's leading us, I think, into these things, and we try to follow that. So that's where that's how we ended up here. And so, yeah, it's, you tell people, they're like, what do you do for work? And it's like, oh, we got a bowling ball company. And they're like, you never run into everybody who does that, and so it's, so it's unusual, but it's a great business. And I get to meet wonderful people like yourself and Dwight, Dwight and I get to be buddies, and, so yeah, it's good stuff.
Okay, so now I've got a lot of questions about this. I think you and I could do an hour by ourselves. Because I'm very.
We'll check with you next week.
The whole process of starting a business and then watching a business grow. There are so many different points throughout that business. I'm fascinated by all that stuff. So you have the bowling balls. Now you got to find a distributor, obviously, if you're going to start putting.
We had distributors, okay, because we had That's a whole nother story.
See that?
I mean, I got so many stories. You're in this business long enough. You have lots of stories because, but we had, at one point we had manufactured ball plug for DBA. Okay.
Right. Sure.
Because we did work for Brunswick. We also did work for DBA. I don't know if the bowling people will know who it is. Anyway, and we were making their ball plug. And then we came up with this other formula that was much improved, because they wanted us to replicate stuff they'd been buying from American Synthetics. And so we did that. But then in the process, we were like, this could be a lot better. So we developed our own formulation. We were actually going to offer it to them. And then we'd only been selling to them for like 9 months. Well, then DBA said, hey, we're going into manufacture on our own. We don't need you anymore. And that was kind of, anyway, we're like, oh. And so we didn't give them this great new formula. And we're like, we've got this wonderful new ball plug formula. They just cut us out of the business after all this engineering we did for it. We're going to launch our own product line called Tech Line Products, which is kind of the basis of where MOTIV came from. So we started distributing ball plug. And so we got distributors all over the world because the ball plug is fantastic. And it's still state of the art. And so anyway, and so we had distributors all set up. So that was one hurdle that we did not have to really go kind of reinvent the wheel. We already had all the everything in place, that once we did the bowling balls, we could just add those back to our distribution chain that we already had established. And that was kind of when we did that. That was, it was kind of one of those things where if we ever needed it, this is a great, option. If we ever have to go into the bowling business or direct, we can establish that. So and there's other nuances to that story that I won't put on radio, but but anyway, but it's just one of those things again where, it's like when DBA said, we don't want you anymore, and we're doing it ourselves, because they basically used this as a stopgap measure, but had not mentioned that. Anyway, that was a door slammed in our face, but yet we, turned lemonade into lemons and did something good with it. So again, it's you just gotta you keep looking for that next out, of where we're going, where's this leading us? And so it worked out. And then you end up going into the bowling ball business when Brunswick moves to Mexico, and suddenly, oh my gosh, your distribution chain is there. And I mean, this is, and I don't want to freak anybody out, but I mean, this is where, you there's a plan, and, God has a plan for us. And I feel like this is very obvious in the path we've taken. So it's a great thing. So yeah,
we ended up buying our ball plug direct from MOTIV. At that time, it was Tech Line. One of the customer service reps, her name was Jamie. She was my contact. I'm sure Scott remembers her.
Yep.
So Jamie calls me one day and says, we're going to get into bowling balls. And my answer was, are you sure you want to do that? You're going up against the big three at that time, which was Brunswick, Storm, and Columbia and Track. What year did you guys actually start manufacturing bowling balls at the plant?
It was like in 2008, we started kind of the process. One of the things that we did was, as a kind of we had invented the graphic system. Okay. And we'd come up with this graphic system, and we had not shown it to anybody. We were getting patents on it. And I talked to Brunswick when they were like, we're going to leave. And I was like, well, look, I've got this really awesome system that if you guys would stay here, I would offer that to you, no charge. You can use my patent, and you guys can stay here. I didn't tell them what it was, because if they said no, obviously I didn't want to, tip our hand on that. And so anyway, they said, no, we're going to Mexico. And I was like, okay, so we had this great graphic system, and which was developed by the team here. And so that was like 2007, and we worked on it for like a year and a half, that, and also working on urethanes and stuff. But we really started like in 2009 was when we first started selling. But I'm going to give you guys a little caveat on starting a bowling ball company. Okay. My brother and I worked for 7 years with no paycheck. Okay. That's what it was. And we were putting money in the first 5 years. We're just everything we'd earned our whole lives, we're just dumping into the company and dumping it in and dumping it in. And obviously that became less and less necessary as we grew. But it's a terrible thing. But we worked for 7 years. I was basically retired for 7 years, except for working full time, and not only just living off savings, but my savings were going. I was building a new business. So it is not easy, and that's why I kind of people are like, oh, you're so lucky. It's like, no, no, we played blood, sweat, and tears for this. I had those days where I was just like, what have I done? When things didn't go well and whatever. But it's just one of those things where it is rough. But you just got to trust and believe, and you just keep going forward and knowing that that there's a plan, and trust in the fact that you don't get led to certain destinations for no reason. And
right.
So that's what we did, and we just kept, and it's worked out. It's obviously worked out.
One question I had was one of the guys are my customers and gives me a hand at the shop, Anthony. He had a whole list of questions for you. Getting to manufacturing R&D, we call him Mr. Motive in the shop, by the way, so appropriate name for this show. He wanted to know how many trial runs on average does it take for you guys to actually come up with a ball shape and motion that you finally make the final product?
Great question, and it is a lot. It is a lot. I would say we probably do somewhere between 20 and 35. I mean, one of the tanks, we probably did 100 runs on that, trying to get to where we wanted to be, because not all of it is just, okay, we're trying to build this ball. A lot of what we do is development of new ways to make bowling balls. Okay, so some of it is just for information, to see if basically throwing mud on the wall and see if it sticks, kind of stuff. A lot of it though is tuning. I mean, we tell you if a bowling ball is the exact same ball, like a Thrill or something like that, or whatever, or like the Primal Shock, exact same cover stock as the original Shock, as the Venom Shock. We tell you that. If we don't tell you this cover stock is the same cover stock from this, it isn't. And so every ball we make is tuned and tuned and tuned. And it's a really long process, but we have this idea of where we want to be, where the current lineup is not reaching the motion that we need. And so we have these targets. I mean, you can see where we're at. I mean, EJ said it really well. They asked him what he had changed in his game to suddenly win 5 titles, last year, and or this year, I should say. And he said, well, I'm working at it, but he said, obviously it's not just me. Something has changed with the bowling balls, where suddenly he has that big edge. And, you can see what's going on here at the place. I mean, we just won the Lucky Larson, Maria just won the thing, finished second in the Queens, the previous tournament. And not only did she win the last tournament, but we got first and third in the Lucky Larson. We got first and third. I mean, we've got a lot of great stuff. The equipment is giving our bowlers an edge. And you can see, we put out a thing where percentage wise, we start with, I don't know, 9% of the players on the PBA tour, and by the first cut or something, we're up to, I don't know what it is, but it's a much higher percentage, typically. It's not always the case, but almost always, if you look at the numbers, we're getting more and more, bigger and bigger. And so that's that. And the other companies have great bowlers. They're wonderful people, great bowlers, but the balls are giving our guys an edge. And that's what, really, to become the top bowling ball company in the world, we just are waiting for people to figure it out, for the majority of people. And because there's some great stuff. And I mean, we've got motion that's never been seen before. And, you look at some of the new stuff, and it's crazy. The new nuclear forge is unreal. I mean, it's unreal. Our guys are just, and when you watch television with these guys too, you can see they're, it used to be a kind of thing where they were using a lot of Venom Shocks. They were doing a lot of, this, I really like this old ball or that ball. all the guys are using all the new stuff now because we've taken another huge step forward. And really our whole theory of building bowling balls and building this company has been a thing where all we have to do is get far enough ahead, motion wise and performance wise, of everybody that nobody can deny it. And then the floodgates will open, and the populace will see it, people will know. And then, you know, it's performance that's going to get us there. I'm not going to try to outmarket people. I don't have the kind of money that other companies are gleaning from their product. They have tons of sales, so they can just keep throwing money at the industry and say, we're the best, we're the best, we're the best. I can't overcome that. Okay, you can't come from behind with less money and outmarket somebody. But what you can do is you can just say, you know what, we're going to beat you on performance, and that's what our focus has been. And if you guys, you know, you see the balls now and you run them against somebody else's stuff, it's getting real obvious that we're the guys.
Yeah. Well, along those lines, I mean, the PBA is your biggest outlet for marketing. I mean, you have the national TV with them, you know, 30 dates a year next year in 2024.
Right.
There's been a couple of rule changes specific to the PBA with the 78 hard listen rule for urethane or urethane-like balls and the nothing more than 2 years old.
Right.
Is that changing how any of your R&D or anything of your plans for the PBA Tour for 2024 are happening to continue to get these bowling balls that you want into your players' hands?
Yeah. Well, the good news is, is like last year there were basically 6 titles, 7 titles actually, won with legal equipment. Okay, that will be legal this year. There were 7 titles won. We won 6 of them. Okay, and so we haven't made anything that is not going to be legal next year. Okay, this upcoming year. And so we really haven't had an issue. I think the biggest issue that we're having, and we're working with Neil Stremmel, who, by the way, is a wonderful guy and doing great stuff. We're working with Neil on some things about, because we feel like maybe the urethane-like situation is a little bit of a shotgun thing, because there are balls that are going to fall into that hardness category that don't soften. Okay, they shouldn't be illegal. And so we're just working, with him to make sure that things that are legal, if they stay hard, if they're hard, they stay hard, they don't soften, those balls should be legal. And so and our stuff doesn't soften, so we don't have this whole thing that you're talking about is not targeted at us at all. We don't have anything that has ever been brought up or thrown out or anything. We've never been the guys who were like, oh no, I think it's great.
Okay.
The rule is good. So
do you feel the PBA and Neil Stremmel in particular have been open about their testing on all this stuff?
Oh yeah. They try really hard. I mean, and actually, in reality, they're actually more than fair. Okay, more than fair. And they're actually trying to help people to be legal. I've seen a lot of other data from other things, and I'm obviously not going to throw anybody under the bus here.
Right.
But I mean, there are things out there that are there that I wouldn't do, or I don't think we're right. But and when you see the data, you can see things are going on, but I don't want to go into that at all. That's above my pay grade, But I think everybody's trying to make sure, and that's all we want, is a level playing field. If the ball's legal, it is legal. It stays legal. It's legal. We just want, we want the best man to win. We want the best manufacturer with the best legal performance to win. And we feel that's us. And that's why I said we've always subscribed to the fact that our equipment was not going to soften, that our equipment is not going to be soft when they're using it. We don't have limited runs or special runs or do anything for the pros that we don't do for the regular bowlers. I feel, and I'm not saying anybody else is doing that. What I am saying though is that for us, ethic wise, if somebody's using a nuclear forge on TV and crushing it with it, and a bowler goes, oh, that ball looks perfect for me, that ball should be exactly the same ball that pro bowler is using. It shouldn't be, well, he's got one that's tuned or it's maybe got, whatever, a different core, maybe it's softened a little bit or it's a different run. That shouldn't be how it is. It should be what you see on TV is what you can buy in the store. And that's what we do.
Scott, I want to go back to the beginning of this thing as you're building it. So you become a bowling ball company, all that stuff. Now, obviously, the goal, I would assume here at some point, is to get a ball into a PBA member's hand, to the ability to maybe get on TV at some point and so forth. Right. What is that process like as far as trying to recruit guys that have never bowled your product, don't know your product, and then trying to convince somebody to sign on to bowl with your product?
Well, I mean, PBA guys, first of all, I maybe 12 years ago, they didn't know who we were, or they'd never thrown our stuff. Those guys are throwing our stuff right now. I mean, guys.
Oh, no. I'm saying the first guy that you pitched, or before you signed that first guy. Tell me about that process.
Way back in the beginning. Okay.
Yeah.
One of the best, we had Scott Norton, great guy, wonderful. He was the first kind of like big name guy that we had. There were a couple other guys that were good. Really, super guys out there. Dick Allen, was a guy who kind of came to us, I mean, there's a bunch of other guys. I just, Lee Vanderhoff, I mean, and we've had some really, really cool people, and actually they're all basically all still with us, and, but we, I mean, it was initially, Dick Allen is a great example. He's such a wild ass, that he kind of had burned a lot of bridges, and Dick knows this is true. So he would not hang me out for saying this, but he's kind of gone through the process and worked for everybody and did stuff. And he just really couldn't find a home where they loved him, where they liked his personality, where they liked his character. He's a character. I mean, but I'll tell you what, he's a phenomenal bowler and he's a phenomenal person. But he isn't going to blow smoke up your rear end to try to further his own career. He's going to call it like he sees him, and that's it. And so I got to give basically all the credit on this was to Brett Spangler. Okay. Brett Spangler is our pro tour rep. And Brett basically was our liaison into the PBA. Brett is a very talented, hyper intelligent individual, and he kind of had the keys to the kingdom. So he knew these guys, and he's the guy who said, talked to Dick Allen and said, look, we'd love to have you here if you want to come over. And Dick did, and he's still with us, But I gotta say it's one of those things where, Brett talked to people and we got guys. He got a Scott Norton. He got, we just, we've had, that's where it all came from. You get a good guy that people respect, and people respect Brett extremely because they know he's a very genuine, very honest person. And that was it. And then we back him up, and that's why a lot of people talk about we're a family, and we still are. And that, I think it's a tribute to the fact that, we, as long as you're a good person, you're doing your best, we're with you, and we're going to support you all the way. So,
well, congratulations on a great showing at the PBA League. I mean, your balls looked great, and a lot of the guys were throwing the forge, nuclear forge. One of probably the best signings that you guys ever had was EJ Tackett, and what that guy has done for your company.
I don't know. Oh, yeah.
But that's the question I have is in the shop, Scott, we get a ton of people come in that are the high average bowlers in town, and they are looking to get into a staff position with a ball company. You're not alone getting these questions. I know Storm and Brunswick are the same. What avenue do these guys go toward to get a staff position with a ball company?
It's a great question, Dwight. And I get this question a lot. I mean, I get it. The phone will ring. I answer it. People call me, and I answer the phone. If somebody calls, I'll call them. I don't care if it's a bowler or who it is, Anyway, here's how, if you want to get on staff for a company, here's how you do it. Okay. I always tell them, we don't put people on staff because we EJ, yes, it's just like he's there. But why do we have EJ on tack it on staff? Because he's going to sell bowling balls for us. Okay, that's really the bottom line. Staff people are there because they're basically going to act like your agents out in the field, and they're going to sell bowling balls for you. Okay, that is the bottom line. That is what it all comes to. It sounds mercenary, but that is really what it's all about. And like I have tons of friends. They're not on staff. I don't, so it's just like we put people on that we think will help the business grow. Okay. And so what I tell people is the best way to get on staff for a company is prove that you're going to make the business grow. So if you love a brand, don't call me, call Storm, call Brunswick, call all these different places. I'd like to be on staff and asking everyone to be on staff. I don't want guys who are, I just want to be on staff for somebody. I just want free bowling balls. That guy's heart is not is not part of the family. You know what I mean? Right. We want guys that love the brand and then can do something productive with their love for the brand. And so so that's really what we tell them. Just do web postings, do videos, do good videos, don't do bad videos, do good videos, be kind to others, be an ethical bowler, be good, to your family, don't go to jail, things like that, and I got to tell you, we've had our share of, okay, this is a difficult situation, but we want good people. We want good people who love the brand. We don't want people who just love, I love people who just love bowling, but, we really want their heart to be behind it, because if they're trying to actually promote our brand, they need to be sincere. And if you're just like, well, they're giving me free bowling balls, so I'm going to say they're the best, that's not sincere. Okay. So that's not what we're looking for. We're looking for guys who can be really sincere, really believe it, because don't sell somebody a product you don't believe in. If you don't think we're the best, you shouldn't be selling us. You should be selling whatever you think is the best. And I tell this to pro shops too. And Dwight, I've told you this before too, is that, we've had pro shops come to us and say, I want to be a MOTIV only bowling ball company, or bowling ball pro shop. And I'm like, the thing is that you really are going to limit yourself on that. That's kind of a thing where pro shops, I think that their job is to look at every bowling ball manufacturer and every bowling ball made, and then fit the person with that brand that is going to work best for them. Yes. Okay. Mm-hmm. Not to just go like, well, I'm going to recommend MOTIV because that's all I carry. I want you to fit them. Ethically, your job is to be their agent, to be their rep. And so, again, we feel the same way with staffers. They need to be ethical. They need to really sincerely do that. And that's one of our things ethically, is that I've got so many people that love the brand. Our job is to give them every bowling ball that really they're going to need to fit their clientele. That's when they can ethically say, I'm going to tell you MOTIV is the best because quality is phenomenal. Our warranty is great. We back up everything. We're, great customer service. We make great products. I mean, you look at, what we always say is we want the best, or I'm not going to really mess with it. You look at our bowling ball bags. They're amazing. They're so good. They're the best in the industry. And why? Because we spend the extra money. Our bowling balls are the best in the industry, I feel, and most everybody who throws MOTIV feels. And the reason for this is that, a great example is roundness. Okay. The legal limit on roundness is 10 thousandths out of round. Okay. And we're averaging probably somewhere in I would say the 3 to 4 thousandths out of round. When we're doing, every ball that we make is tested. And this is not, we could just say, okay, 10 thousandths out of round. That's good. Nope. We want the balls to be rounder. And so if a ball is like even approaches 8 thousandths out of round, we re-round it. Okay. So, they stick in the vacuum jigs, and I'm not going to say that we've been 100%, but we've been like 99.999%. Our stuff is really round. And so, and that's something that people can't really see, but pro shops can see it. When
we see it every day.
And it sticks, then it's great. And the same thing with like cover stocks. We use, pure resin. We don't dilute down our cover stocks. We don't use extenders in them. We don't do any of the things where you can take value out of the product without telling people about it, and so we do it right. And the graphic system, that's far more expensive to do than just engraving it and then putting engraving in. And I know, because we were the guys who made all the engraving film for everybody, came up with the epoxy engraving systems that, were kind of state of the art and all that stuff. So it's just one of those things where we're giving you your money's worth. And it's not just the ball itself, but it's the engineering that went into it. We are doing our homework. We are not stopping until that ball is phenomenal. And that's why people always say, you guys never launch a lemon. Everything's always really good, And it's like, yeah, because I'm not trying to sell bowling balls. I'm trying to sell wonderful, perfect bowling balls. And I want to make, bowling balls really should not just be considered, things. They're really performance art, And so it's one of those things where it's, for us, it's, yeah, I want to make a living, and yeah, I want to sell bowling balls and make money and whatever, all that good stuff, and build the business. But I want to build it on the fact that we built it the right way. We built it ethically. We built it by doing people a service and by giving them more than they were bargaining for, not by just again, selling. I always say, some people just, they want to sell ice cubes to Eskimos. That's a bad thing. That's a horrible thing to do. They don't need ice cubes. They need blankets. Okay, we're trying to sell blankets to Eskimos, kind of thing, And so, anyway, I don't mean to culture appropriate anything there, but anyway, we're just trying to be really, really good, just really good people, and do it right, and build a business, build it the right way. So.
For years now, it's been the battle of the oil protecting the lanes versus the bowling balls being manufactured. And every time it seems like some technology advances in oiling the lanes, the technology advances for bowling balls. But it's been kind of stagnant, I guess, with big jumps since, let's be honest, the Excalibur in 92. It's been resin, and it's been kind of the stop. Do you ever see that big advancement that some companies tried to make in the past? Like the EFX with Columbia? Yes. Yep. And do you ever see that getting away from resin? Or is that something you guys are looking at, getting away from resins and doing something else for high performance?
Oh, I jump. Yeah. One of the things is that when you start looking at composites, basically, thermoset plastic, things like that, things that you can mold. There's innumerable types of that, epoxy and all kinds of Novalex and all kinds of things that you can work into. But the problem is they're very cost prohibitive, and they don't lend themselves very well to a rapid kind of manufacturing process. Urethane is a fantastic thing. Polyester is a fantastic thing because they cure rapidly. Okay. And their shrink is limited and things, where when you get into things that that have high exotherm, like epoxy and stuff, what happens is that anything that exotherms hard or highly is going to expand, and then when it contracts, you've got issues. It creates a lot of issues like that, and so you're always going to be bound by the fact that the exotherm and the cost of the raw material is going to do it, because there are things out there that you could do, that probably, you can build an epoxy ball, you can do things, but is it going to be better than urethane? No, it's not going to be, because it doesn't have anything it's really bringing to the party other than, yeah, it's durable, and it's, and it's going to be round and stuff like that. But until they come up with a new, composite that kind of lends itself to adaptation. And this is really what I don't think people really realize, is how much adaptation is done to the cover stocks and stuff. That's what we do. Our company is based on engineering, chemical engineering. And that's why, it's one of those things where I'm kind of stumbling here, but we have to be able to do things to the cover stock. Otherwise, everybody's ball would just basically be the same, and then it would just be who's just the roundest. No, and really, so we have just a giant toolbox of things that we work with the cover stock on. And I mean,
so there could be the next big technological jump in cover stocks, but it could cost a bowler $1,000 to get that bowling ball.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and
there's bowlers that would pay that, by the way. I know that.
Might pay it, but it's just, it's not, you know. And I don't see it. We've done it. I've done everything. Every thermoset out there, we've messed with it. Okay, we're actually, one of our fortes is epoxy engineering. We were, you know, the ball plug. Okay, we came up with a great ball plug because what did we do? We are epoxy engineers, and now we're urethane and epoxy engineers, and polyester engineers. You know, so we know all this stuff, and that's really what we do. And so, but I mean, if you're looking for a big step forward, the products that we have now, just like going back to what EJ said, where he said, I didn't suddenly get hugely better. Right? He's like, you know. He's like, the equipment has gotten, you know, much better, and I mean, we were great before, but now we've made a huge improvement in the products, and you know, we've found some really good technology, and we're putting it into the balls, and it's really helping. I mean, that's why I said, you know, the nuclear forge is something else, and if you look at some of the new stuff we've got coming out too, you know, it's off the hook. So. Yeah, really
when a new ball comes out, how many testers are you relying basically on the PBA to give you guys feedback? How many testers actually, when a new ball comes out, are you guys using to get feedback?
Yeah, right. And I mean, we've got probably, I'm going to say, you know, that really what we do is we have basically like 4 people that we work with the initial development on, because one of the things is, when you don't want to make 40 balls of every new formulation that you do it, or you're not going to want to make very many test formulations. And so we make small batches of them, and then we'll get them out to, you know, a few guys. And then once we find really, you know, basically it'll come down to 2 or 3 balls that we're trying to kind of thread the needle on. Then we'll maybe encompass some of the other guys, and it's not just like everything goes to EJ. You know, if it's a ball that we think EJ would really benefit from, then EJ is the guy who's tested. But he's not always, you know, going to be the guy that's going to fit that ball. Maybe it's Tom Smallwood, you know, or maybe it's AJ, you know, or maybe it's Dick Allen, you know, or Andrew Anderson, you know, another great guy, you know, and great feedback from all these guys. And so Maria, you know, gives us great feedback, and you know, Nathan Bohr. It depends on who's really going to benefit from that ball and really is into that style of roll. And then we'll kind of work with those guys in the PBA. But I guarantee you, every one of them throws it eventually, you know, pretty quick. So because they all want it, and you know. So anyway, and it's kind of funny because at the league there were guys from other manufacturers digging into our guys' bags because our guys' motion was so good, and they were like, oh my gosh, you know, they were, you know, I'm not going to use any names obviously, but
right,
we got other guys from other teams throwing our stuff because they're like, holy crap, you know. And so it's getting pretty cool out there.
It's almost silly season. I mean, calendar year is usually pretty much silly season, then go in line with the PBA season and the PWBA season. So it could be interesting if some of these guys that were looking in bowling bags are
right,
maybe dropping Scott an email or something.
This is the next thing that I want to find out, because we've been trying to find an answer. Nobody wants to talk to us. And you may say, no, I'm not talking to you.
Yeah, because I got a big mouth. Is that what you're saying? That's where you're going?
No. I'm just saying you may be willing to talk about it, because seemingly nobody else is. I want to know how it goes for contracts between bowlers and bowling ball companies. How does that work? Is it essentially a standard contract where everybody has the same, essentially, bonuses and so forth? Is it individually negotiated out like you would an NFL player or an MLB player? Everybody gets their own set of deals. Are there agents involved for these bowlers, or is it just the bowler and you? How does that work?
Well, for us, at least, you know, one of the things is that we try to be really ethical about it. I mean, we'll be in contract with the guy, and if he has an exceptional year, even though maybe his contract, you know, is like, you know, 3 years or 10 years or whatever it is, and he's just, you know, his value has increased to us, we're going to renegotiate that contract. We're going to ask him to renegotiate it, because we want to be fair to him. Okay. The contracts are not the same for every guy. I mean, basically the language is, you know, of, you know, all the, you know, whatever, and, you know, the legal terms, the legalese in it, but it depends on really on what they've done. where they're going, how much they promote the brand, how much they're, I mean, you look at like Wesley Lowe and AJ Johnson, huge in junior gold. Okay. And so those guys have big value in that stuff for us beyond the fact that they're just PBA guys. So there's all kinds of stuff. Andrew Anderson, great guy, very, very in tune with what's going on in the industry. His value isn't just his bowling. It's his intelligence, and it's his other thing. EJ, he's amazing, and he's so sincere, and he's so down to earth, and he's just so approachable that, people adore him. So, I mean, you kind of try to take all these things and you try to give them, basically what is fair value. And to be honest, the thing that you do when you're negotiating this is you look at how they compare to the other guys, because I don't want to give some guy who's done a bunch of stuff like less than a guy who hasn't done a lot of stuff, but I really like that guy, or and I like him.
Wait. I've heard Baby Tackett already has a contract ready to go, and he's born to EJ and Natalie in December. Is that true? Is that true that Baby Tackett has a contract already?
It's like we're in the Bulgarian breeding program here thing. We're teaming up bowlers and we're like signing their kids. I'll tell you what. If you want to go to that, the kids that I basically signed when they were babies were the Jordan brothers. I don't know. You guys know Landon?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Jordan? Okay.
Yep.
Well, I've known them since they were like 3 years old. Okay. Because their dad was one of our first staffers, and he became one of my best friends. And so those kids have been throwing our stuff since they were little, and they still throw, and they're phenomenal bowlers.
They're 16, yes. And I mean, Landon almost took down a PBA regional title last year.
He did.
At 15. Yeah, it was phenomenal.
Yeah, he's great, and he's going to be out there this year too, doing some more stuff. But that both of those boys are amazing. And then I'll tell you a funny story about Brylow, their sister. Anthony said to me, she's right-handed, okay, and he said, I'm making her bowl left-handed and two-handed. And I said, what? And he goes, oh yeah. He said, if she's left-handed and two-handed, she will for sure get a college contract. So,
that's true. Yeah.
Okay, so this starts when she's like 4. He's like already, prepping her for the college thing. And anyway, they are. If you ever need a family that is the greatest family in the world to talk to, and that are just down to earth and just super great, that is those guys should be on the radio show, not me. They are my heroes.
Dwight's got to have their phone number too, then.
Yeah,
I'll tell us. You can tell us.
Yeah. Scott Wilbur, he's the president of MOTIV Bowling. Thanks so much for hopping on the Spare Time Bowling Show podcast, man. I really appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. It was fun. Anytime, you guys.
Absolutely. Sounds good. Have a good rest of your day. Enjoy. Don't forget, download Spare Time Bowling Podcast on your Odyssey app, or wherever you download your favorite podcast at. And of course, you can check out the video portion of this as we stream all these live on the Odyssey Sports YouTube channel. Have a good one. Toodles. Okay. Beautiful.
And there we go.
Nicely done. Thanks, Dwight.
Yep, no problem.
Could have done this on the radio like 10 years ago, but it's